Okay, well, with me today is Mr. Ken Close. Gentleman I met at the Biohacking Congress and had wonderful conversations and learned a ton from. So thought I would have you on. Ken, thank you for joining me on the Rest from Recovery podcast.
Oh, thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. It was an honor to meet you and hear a little bit about your story too. And whenever someone has moved from a space of suffering or need to a space of accelerated life, you instantly were brothers. So thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And, mission on the podcast, Rest and Recovery, but it's really to educate, equip, and empower. And I think that's an area where we connect, especially on the healing part of things. And we only get one of these lives. So we want to be able to optimize it and do it to the best of our abilities. Unfortunately, we have some things pushing up against us, kind of swimming upstream, which is an area where you kind of sit right now. But I wanted to touch on your interesting background that at face value, when I see you're a CEE, a certified, electronics engineer, at first you're thinking, how does that connect with health, right? But I'm sure as we'll get into it, there's actually quite a bit of connection there. But how did you evolve from doing CEE to basically a health advocate?
Sure. Well, great question. And I get asked this because it doesn't, where's the path? How do you get from there to there? So yeah. And I love it's been an interesting path. I think that if we follow, if we surrender to opportunity, we wind up following the proper path. Right. And most of the time when we start as a engineer and we think that defines us, I think we miss a lot of opportunity. And so as an engineer, there's a certain way in which the brain functions, I guess. I'm a left-handed individual. I'm more ambidextrous, but I'm also a analytical engineer. So it's like left and right brain operate full on, I guess you might say.
Yeah.
And I'm also a martial artist, so I've trained a lot in balancing the body, left and right. It's important that we use the full body. And I started out in the fitness industry. So right out of college, I took a job as a service director for a fitness sales company. And the technology of the equipment was piece of cake for me from an engineering perspective. So I ran their service their whole service system, created a business around that, and wound up actually building my own business and doing that for, over 25 years.
Okay.
And the interesting part about that, though, is so it's all around fitness, all around the nuts and bolts of fitness, and that's great. But you can only get so far on a treadmill, and in fact, you don't go anywhere. You're running in place, as a matter of fact. But you only get so far with the actual equipment side of changing one's life, one's body, and I would see people year after year, and they didn't change much. They would go to the gym, they would work hard, but they didn't change a lot. And so I figured there had to be something else to it. My first modality was learning nutrition, so understanding the chemistry that went into the body. That's important. I went through a lot of nutritional training, performance nutrition training. And then I still saw people struggling. They just weren't getting to their optimal self. And then I started into neuroscience and epigenetics. Oh my gosh. And this was my own training. It was not because it had anything.
Chasing rabbits, I'll say.
Yeah. Going down a rabbit hole. Really. It wasn't because I had to know this for any of my career or my business. It was just because I'm hungry for information and wound up looking into what literally adjusts the body. What is it that actually works, more with the body than just seeing what you say, like a treadmill or the nuts and bolts. And I discovered there's the mind. The mind is the big thing. So that was a fun course. So I went into neuroscience, learning the ins and outs of the mind and the way that the brain interacts with that mind.
Okay.
And then the epigenetic phenomenon around how that influences the cell by cell production within the body.
So maybe touch on, just to explain the term epigenetics, if you don't mind, just in a 30-second.
Yeah, absolutely. So epigenetics is literally the definition: epi, above, genetics, the genetic code. So outside of the influence, outside the genetic code. What's that mean? Any influence. So working out, exercising, that's epigenetics, right? You're going to the gym, you're working out, you're changing the body's transitioning to uphold the loads you're putting on it. So your body changes and transforms. That's also epigenetics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So as you kind of pursued this path of wellness and just pursuing, that hunger for learning, how did you land on, the company you work at now, or Healy, and discovering both the neurological effects, but then how energy kind of plays into that aspect of it?
Yeah, another great question, because everything's energy. And if we understand some of the things about the body, and this is where I was training, is it's the body that's really the only thing we have. You said we have one life, right? So how are we navigating this life? It's in a body, within space and time. But there is an energy or an energetic influence over this body. And the body regenerates itself. This is an amazing, amazing divine creation that we have here to navigate this life. And this creation is regenerating itself to the tune of 800,000 cells per second. And each cell, and now remember, when I say 800,000 per second, that's just not just the skin system, not just the bone system, not just the muscle, but all of it. So there's 800,000 per second being regenerated. And it's done. You're not doing it, right? It's done through a divine orchestrating, a divine intelligence that's doing this. But there is a very specific code designed to influence these cells. Otherwise, you're born as a male, you might morph into a horse, right? I mean, there's a code that winds up
designed to it, right?
Yeah, there's a design, an intelligent design. And this code is the genetic code. And the fun part about that, there's been many studies about the genetic code, and the Genome Project actually revealed an interesting fact that a very small percentage of the genetic code actually designs what it's going to be, or decides what it's going to be, like a skin cell or a bone cell or a muscle cell. 3% or less says that it's going to be one of those particular entities. The other 97% is like, yeah, well, only 3%. So okay, you're going to be a skin cell. What's the other 97%? The other 97% is like an antenna, and it's reading the environment to make sure that that muscle cell is exactly what the organism needs, right? AKA the body. So just like I said earlier, when you're working out and you're lifting heavy weights, or you're running hard, or you're doing that stuff, the cell has to produce itself epigenetically by the influence of its actions, or actually the influence of that antenna, to be able to support the host.
Okay.
Right. So the body becomes stronger, or it becomes weaker. Again, remember the other part of that energetic code, everything's energy, not just the actions that the body is partaking in, but the thoughts generating those actions, the beliefs that are pertaining to the behaviors. So thoughts and beliefs, perceptions, all of that comes together and is writing that 97%.
Yeah, and we had a brief conversation at Biohacking Congress kind of on this point. In previous conversation I had with another guest, she said the issues are in the tissues, and it kind of relates to what you're saying in that it's amazing how influential our mind is as it relates to how well we are.
Oh, 100%. It is the guiding factor. Honestly, it is the placebo of everything that's going on. So whatever we perceive, whatever thoughts we have, remember, no matter what, even resting, on a podcast, working out, whatever you're doing, 800,000 cells per second are regenerating under that influence of code. And when we recover, so the repair, recovery, and growth cycle, a large percentage of that happens between about midnight and 2 a.m. on the circadian rhythm, wherever you are. That's because the mind is out of the way. The rest, recovery, and growth cycle happens there because the mind doesn't influence, and the cells can actually say, oh my gosh, finally, Ken's out of the way. I can do my job properly, right? because all of the stress, all of the concerns, all of the beliefs, all the perceptions are gone. And just think about that for a moment, Scott.
That's really interesting.
The tremendous amount of energy being consumed by worry,
Right.
right? That's energy stricken from the repair cycle, taken away from the body's ability to support the immune system, removed from the proper digestive energy necessary for food transfer from solid to energy. All of that is energy, and we are essentially a finite energy source. And I love Nikola Tesla's statement. He says that if you want to discover the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency. Why? Because energy is ever present. It's ever present. And the only way you can tell the difference between one state of energy and another is by its vibration or frequency, right? Okay. A skin cell versus a muscle cell just has different frequency. And this is a very interesting key point when we're working with the body or we're working with anything, because now we've moved into the 21st century and no longer will Newtonian principle support what we know. That whole cause and effect thing,
right?
We've evolved into the 21st century and the quantum principles of causing an effect. And that's how that epigenetic code is being influenced by the causation of us as a consciousness over the cell biology, over its outcome.
Okay.
And it's all done energetically. And so we have a different frequency of thought, AKA, let's say that we're super creative in the moment. We're just like, wow, I'm fired up. I want to learn, and boom. And what happens to your body? You have so much energy that you can lose track of time when you're learning. You can lose track of your hunger, your digestive system when you're learning, right? All of a sudden, 4 hours went by and you're like, what? You know, I'm not even hungry. I'm just busy, right? That's because the energy has been sent into creativity and it's been moved away from lack or suffering or worry or concern. And the universal law is all about contribution and creation. So we wind up being energized by certain types of behavior.
Yeah. Well, everything you just mentioned, it immediately made me think of, again, mindset. And I know for me, people start talking mindset, they think woo-woo, and it can get there, I suppose. But there's so much validity that I'm learning for myself over the last number of months, how important that is. And it's almost like, I'll call it mental inertia. Based on what you just said, in that, like, what you think, you're kind of forecasting what and how you'll operate. And if it's an encouraging thing, it'll probably go well. If you're presuming something's not going to go optimally, it likely probably won't.
100%. I love your word, forecasting, because if we're sitting here as a body in shape and form in time, but it's the past. This body wasn't created just now.
Right.
This is a representation of all of our past work. Everything we did yesterday and the day before and the decade before is in this present moment sitting here. And to the tune of 800,000 cells per second, it's moving into tomorrow. So often what happens is people are thinking about what was happening yesterday, worrying, concerned, even beating themselves up for what they didn't do or what they did do from yesterday. And they're bringing that into the present moment and making it so real that it's almost exactly, actually not almost, but it is exactly the forecast for tomorrow. So they haven't created any new thought to the tune of 70,000 thoughts per day in the brain, 60, 70,000 thoughts per day. 95% of those are the same ones as yesterday. And so you forecast exactly what the body's going to be tomorrow. And so if you're in a present state of suffering and you're forecasting all of that into tomorrow, what changes?
Yeah. So where is the inflection point or the intersection to try and reverse that approach through, like, I guess, I don't know if you're stopping energy per se, but you're changing it.
Yes. Yeah. So like I said, everything is energy. So what do you do? What is the interactive point? So we do have, now moving into the 21st century, we do have technology that can help us out. As you said, being at the biohacking convention, we saw a lot of great technology. And this great technology in its influence is effective, but most of those technologies, they're implementing something into the body, giving the body something, giving it, right? Without body's permission. I mean, right. How do you know that it's not a one system fits all kind of thing? The body needs to give permission because every one of us is genetically very unique. So now we have a way of actually speaking to the body energetically, asking its permission and its resonance, and then giving very specific frequencies of energy to the body for its optimal alignment. And we can also do that in very specific ways. Programming that we've got that we can work on fitness, right? We got a whole grouping of programs that'll work on just fitness, whether it be muscle, regeneration, circulation, strength. We have things around the mind. We can work with the brain in terms of memory, in terms of wholeness. I mean, think about that. If we can influence the brain's activity, their energy, so the left brain, right brain, front hemisphere, back hemisphere, it's all working in wholeness. Now, all of a sudden, there's, again, a lot of liberated energy within the brain's function to give back to the body. And the brain only weighs, it's only about 3% of the entire body mass weight. It's only about 3%, but it consumes over 20% of the energy of the whole body.
Oh, wow. So I did not know that.
It needs to be efficient.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Go ahead, complete the thought.
Well, so anyway, so what do we do? What is the interactive, what is the hack, right, per se? How are we now taking what we don't like and converting it into what we do like or what we want? So if we've gotten into these patterns of living, beliefs, perceptions, and understandings and habits, that's typically thought processes. This is the neuroscience of things. The synaptic connections in the brain just become efficient around thinking unworthiness, right? And it becomes a neural network. So everything that we do has to go through that network, that filter, to find out, am I worthy? Am I not worthy? And so the moment we start having a different thought or start believing a different pattern, we start building new networks around that pattern, and the old networks will start to die off. But who does that, right? So we have technology that can help balance some of the imbalances within the brain's function, so that suddenly, let me put it this way: if you just felt empowered, if you just, there's these power moves, where you just put your arms in the air and you're wow, and you yell. If you just felt empowered for one moment, then all the thoughts, all the actions, all the things around that shift in your life. If you were able to elongate that from 1 second to 1 minute, or even from 1 minute to 1 hour, or from 1 hour to 1 day, and you felt empowered for an entire day, I'll bet you would probably behave differently and you would accomplish a lot more. So if we could build in frequencies of information to help you feel empowered, and you just went about your day, in other words, you're just a wearable system that you just went through your day wearing it, and it gave you that internal dialogue, not really dialogue, but an internal energy state. You don't have to understand all the technology, but you just can definitely understand the feeling.
Right. Yeah.
And suddenly you're going to act differently. And you do it long enough, you rewire the circuitry in the brain organically.
So it's working with the body, kind of like you were saying, like epigenetics is the external. So like supplements that might be helpful, they're helpful, but it's still an external factor coming in. If I'm hearing correctly, the frequency is more working, since it's innate, each organ has a frequency, it's kind of working with it to get it to maybe the proper sound or frequency.
Yeah, we call that resonance.
Okay.
So resonance is exactly, everybody's different. And so what let's say that, let's just take muscle synthesis, for instance. for your body or my body or even a female body or a younger child body, it's going to be a different protocol. The frequencies are going to be within a specific spectrum. This is study. This is a study of over 2,500 practitioners, over 500,000 different patients, and taking very clear data and finding out how we can combine frequencies to influence the organs, or like you said, the issue, because there's certain frequencies for the issue, aka our beliefs and mind, and then certain frequencies for the tissue, right? So we want to address both, because mind and body need to be in synergy, in balance, or in resonance. So so this is what the way this technology works, which is amazing, is first phase is the read phase. It's sending frequencies through the body via a microcurrent. Microcurrent's just like a carrier, because we are a conductive entity. We're electrical beings.
Yep.
I mean, if you're sending a thought to your finger to wiggle, that is a neurological function that goes through the nervous system to energize the muscles, and the finger wiggles. Well, the same thing can happen if you stick your finger in a light socket. It wiggles a lot, right? It's like involuntarily.
Right.
But it was just proof that we're electrical beings. So we can send microcurrent, very small, subtle currents. And this is decades and decades. I mean, in the early 1900s, they were using microcurrent to influence the body and the cell structures. Oh. It's a carrier wave. And on board that carrier wave are very specific frequencies, so that it can target very specific cells. So if we want to talk to the muscles, we have frequencies to speak to the muscles. If we want to tell those muscles to improve bioavailability of the nutrients that are going into the body, we can tell them that. We can improve cell receptor sites. We can energize the cell so that it's, instead of being a very low voltage, because we can take a little electrical tester and we can measure each cell. And if I knew the voltage of the cell, I would tell you its life expectancy and its level of health.
Wow.
A healthy cell is between 170 millivolts, right? 70 is about that threat. And then as it starts to die off, disease starts at about negative 40 millivolts. That's where disease starts. And we can measure that. So what if we could charge them up, right? Like a battery charger.
Yeah,
we can.
That's fascinating. I find that like kind of hard to get my head around, that you can communicate to at a cellular level, which, if as I understand the science, is pretty foundational, right? A lot of things are built off of that. And then to be able to inform it and it respond in the manner in which you've been asked it to do something, a task, I'll say.
And that's all done through resonance, because it's first of all, it's asking permission of the body. Like you said, it's informing it. So first of all, we're looking at the body. What do you need? Well, first, what category did we choose? Well, we chose muscle. All right. And what specific around the muscle? Strength. All right. So I want strong muscle. All right. So now the system is going to go in and look at your body and find out what's resonant with your muscle system and what would optimize that cell voltage, that cell membrane voltage. What would optimize it? AKA around strength, around muscle and strength. And so now it's asking the body's permission. And then the body says, here's what I resonate with. And then the system reads that resonated signature and starts picking out very specific frequencies for only you. So in other words, you run the same program tomorrow, might be different. I guarantee you it'll be different. Because
I guess it goes back to the 800,000 regenerations, right? And then if what you're doing improves it, it's going to be different.
100%, because we're not the same moment. The moment we become aware of a piece of information, right? We're not the same person. And we've now upregulated some of our understandings. And so same thing, the moment we read a book around how to build a birdhouse or whatever, we now have new knowledge, right? We may never build a birdhouse again, but if maybe our children say, hey, let's build a birdhouse, Daddy, oh, I remember some aspects of that. And you can bring it into the present moment. So we're not the same person though. Before we had the information and after the information, the body now has new information and it has a new way. So it's great. I love it. And the body is very sensitive. honestly, extremely sensitive. I mean, just a thought alone can change that genetic code. And there's another quote I love from Nikola Tesla. He says that everyone should consider his body as a priceless gift. I'm just going to read this so I get it right.
Sure.
From one whom he loves above all, a marvelous work of art, of incredible beauty and mystery beyond human conception, and so delicate that a word, a breath, a look, nay, a thought may injure it.
It's amazing.
100 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, depending on everyone's theological background, we kind of touched on this too at the conference, but I'm a Christian, and there's so many things of truth that speak to that. And I'm going to paraphrase, but where the tongue is like the most powerful weapon out there. And so, basically speak life. I completely hacked that up, but I mean, the summary of it is basically just, speak life into it, and that's what it's going to produce.
Absolutely. I mean, we're communicators, and look at us communicate right now, over this technology. This wasn't available 100 years ago. And it, even just 20 years ago, right? I mean, now this little smart device that we have here has more computing power than the Apollo mission had.
Yeah.
And so we've advanced a lot, and now words can be global in an instant, right? And there's a lot of, I've got school age kids, so this texting thing and what's going on behind the scenes, I mean, that's a big deal. And so we can actually be kind of invisible. We can just send out a word invisibly, right, and not take responsibility for it.
True.
But what happens, the biggest factor that happens, and this is what I teach everybody, your body is going to be influenced by it no matter what. If you don't want to take responsibility for your words and actions and beliefs, your body will. And eventually it's going to show up on the body. I promise. Every time you have a birthday with a 0 on the end of it, there's going to be a higher and higher influence factor of what you did yesterday. Like I mentioned earlier, the body is a record of the past, right? So the entire emotional system, by the way, is a record of the past. By the time we're about 30, 35 years old, we've experienced all types of different emotional patterns, and we've categorized those in terms of how our perceptions are about them. So in other words, we don't need to rehearse what it feels like to feel love. We just need an outside trigger, right? So you see a beautiful cute little puppy, you got some love around that, your parents, your children, your spouse, a beautiful scenery. There's this internal emotion that builds, and the brain, the senses first take it all in. The senses take it in, our sight, our smell, hearing, and then the brain formulates an opinion, a memory of the past,
right?
And then it creates peptides that go into the body to build the chemical response, or AKA the emotion. And thought is to the brain as emotion is to the body, and the two enrich the experience, right? They make an amazing enriched experience, and we live for experiences.
Yeah.
So all of that tie together. And sometimes the past has built emotional responses to build experiences that don't serve us. Right.
Right.
And that shows up on the body in the form of disorder and disease.
And so can some of those negative circumstances create accelerated wear and tear on our body then?
Absolutely. Yeah. Remember what I said. So the genetic code, the 97% reading the environment, if you have built onto that antenna, that 97%, an energy of unworthiness. Think about it for a minute. You're building on unworthiness. You're building jealousy. You're building anger. You're building all those blocks on there that are energy consumers. Right? They pull power away from the energy of the cell. So what happens is the cell is still going to be a skin cell or a muscle cell. It's just going to be a lower quality. right? It's just going to be a down-regulated quality of cell.
Okay.
And decade after decade, the entire body becomes an organism of down-regulated or lower quality cells. And then it's just not going to perform.
Yeah. And you're just going to have, I mean, I'll say like gaps in the brick, right? That may deteriorate or compress or what have you, however you want to articulate that.
Yeah. You know, we are a finite amount of energy. That's why we have this repair and recovery cycle. We go to sleep, we repair, and then we wake up. How many people wake up energized, ready for the day, or still leftover from the suffering of yesterday? Or another way, how many people wake up and go, oh, there's that ache, or there's that pain, or, oh, that's right, I still don't have any money, or, oh, I'm still in a bad relationship. They rehearse it the moment they wake up. So remember, yesterday's stuff gets put on this present moment, so the body doesn't change and becomes tomorrow. Same. And we want to shift that. We want to hack that.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of great practices, from meditation to prayer. Prayer is a good one. You know, prayer is meditation, right? It's just becoming aware of something different.
Yeah.
And so the fun part about that is that when we do that, we change the energy. 800,000 cells per second are being changed under that energy of the prayer, of the meditation, of the thought process. So what if it was just easier and more balanced and more aligned for the brain to let go of worry? There are very distinct neurological systems that we can address through frequency, through microcurrent, to make you feel whole, to just make you feel not necessarily happy, because happy is a relative term. I just want to be happy.
Maybe lighter. Because I mean, to me, worry is like burdensome. It's like you're walking around with an emotional rucksack on.
Perfect. Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. So we have a program that's called Coherence. I love it, because what's coherence? Coherence is defined as the ability to be flexible, to move with the changing world, and yet strong and rigid enough to stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah.
That's coherence. You're coherent with a life. And so we have a program that builds that. So what does that mean? Well, coherent thought means you're not using a lot of your thought energy wasted on those 60 to 70,000 thoughts that were 95% yesterday. Yeah. Well, we can make that different. I mean, we can just liberate those.
Well, and you were saying, I totally lost my train of thought on that last point. So anyway, so you mentioned, prayer and mindset. What are some practices that you utilize, or can you utilize it in collaboration with the device?
Absolutely. So there's not just one answer. So in other words, you say, somebody comes up to you and says, like, for instance, me, I get a lot of, I'm a coach, I help people. I'm an epigeneer. What's that mean? That means so I'm an electronics engineer, but the principles I bring to the shift and change of the epigenetic codes.
Okay.
So my definition of what I am today is an epigeneer. So I help people. Most people want to come up and they want to lose weight. I call that the weight management protocol. Okay. So you want to lose weight. You can do just one thing by just exercise more. Yeah. Okay. There's one thing, exercise more. Most people think, well, if I exercise more and eat less, I'm going to change that code.
Right.
And you will, but if you exercise, if you change some of your diet protocols and we work on the mindset, now we have a more well-rounded success protocol. So, and then if you add the Healy, if you add this technology to it, now all those other things, we can increase the bioavailability of the food. How do we do that? Well, we work on the cell receptor systems to optimize their chemical intakes. Okay. So we're charging the cell up so that it can, when you do ingest food, it's digested properly, or more wholly. And then the body will help uptake that into cells. So we can do that through that protocol. We can work on the mindset with this vibrational technology, with this frequency technology. We can also work on the muscles when you are working out. So we can pretty much cover all the bases, right? And instead of just one or two protocols.
Right.
Yeah. So we can cover all the bases. And when it comes to prayer, or what do I do? So I'm a meditator. I use meditation as my practice, because it's one of our most ancient, and prayer is just meditation as well,
Right.
And so I love it, and it works really well because I can dim down the emotional response of my mind. I can go to a place where there is nothing, where I don't have to worry about a schedule. I don't have to worry about yesterday. I can just be in the present moment. And the longer I can be in the present moment, the divine intelligence of my body, as well as what we call the information field, around whatever your belief structure is, God, the ether, the information field, it's all one, right? And we can open our portal, our vessel, to absorb and accept it. And it's amazing what you get. I mean, in prayer, we get answers. Right?
Yeah.
we get clarity. Yeah, we get clarity, amazing clarity. And so that's the moment when we gain that clarity, that we now have, we've got a new self, a new personality, a new personal reality, that can benefit the body. So we all have a body to work with.
And it's fascinating to me too, that, we need all the technology and the other things, but something as straightforward and, dare I say, simplistic as meditation and breath work, and the value that those two can really bring to our overall countenance is pretty
Absolutely. The breath, let me give you a little bit, I'll share a little bit about the breath. So in order for the body to be in the stress response, it requires a stimulus, right? It requires a thought that is basically interpreting our sensory perception. So we see a bus coming straight at us. We see it with our eyes. There's a thought that is an understanding of the past. We think that bus is going to crash into us. And then it requires a chemical influence on the body, and then the body goes into a state. Okay. But the thought itself starts to stimulate the prehistoric brain and these systems, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system. It engages those, and the body needs, in order for it to be in that fight or flight mode or freeze mode, it needs a couple of things. It needs to have a quick, rapid breath, right? It needs to have a very what we would call a convergent focus, right? Okay. Just all our peripheral goes away, boom, right into the moment. And then it's going to need to turn on the different systems in our body, the adrenalines and all the different chemical systems. And it needs to shut down non-essential systems to be very, very clear that we have to run. We have to get out of the way of the bus. Right. And the non-essential systems, number one non-essential system when we go into that fight or flight mode is digestion. It's no time to digest food when you're running for your life.
Right. Right.
And so people who are trying to lose weight, but they're staying in this stress response, guess what? Look, you're not digesting your food very well. Right.
So that kind of thing leads to the gut challenges and such.
Oh yeah, leaky gut syndrome, and there's a lot of acid reflux, indigestions, those kind of things. In fact, we can even lead it towards some of the food allergies because improperly or poorly digested food winds up being, has to be stored or getting rid of it, eliminated. And our elimination systems are, how many times people are having elimination issues because of stress. Right. Because that whole constriction system. So that's another big important thing. And if we want to get out of that stress response, we have a controllable system, which is called our breath. And we can just simply slow our breathing down. And the moment we slow our breathing down, the body has to move out of that stress response into that rest and digest. So we move out of that sympathetic into that parasympathetic, right? And the vagal tone, the way that the body and the brain are speaking to each other starts to get in more harmony just on the breath. And I'll give your listeners a tool. It's called a box breath. If you're familiar with a box breath, it's a very, very simple way of changing our state, influencing the vagal tone and moving out into that rest and digest system. And the box breath just looks like this. It's simply the same amount of seconds per action. So you have an intake or an inhale, you have a hold, you have a exhale, and then you have a hold. So if you make them all the same, that's why it looks like it's called a box breath. So if you have an inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, that's the down sides of the box, and then exhale for 4 seconds, and then repeat. So 4 seconds, 4 seconds, 4 seconds, right? Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, back to the hold. Okay. That is our conscious way of using the body's breath to bring it back into balance, getting it out of the limbic brain, back into our thought process, and giving it balance.
I'm just kind of helping it down regulate. And I guess you could say we're talking energy, kind of a lower energy level.
So anger, frustration, jealousy, unworthiness, those are all what we call low vibration frequencies.
Okay.
Happiness, joy, gratitude, those are high frequency vibrations. And the lower the frequency of vibration, the closer to density, the more influential it winds up being on the body. So this is a 3-dimensional body. The higher ones, joy, gratitude, love, abundance, those are high frequencies, more working with the spirit and the information field.
Wow.
So now we're raising the energy just by those higher frequency emotions.
That's interesting, because I like, when you feel like those things that are the lower frequency, you do feel weighted down. You feel dragging and just like you can't get up maybe, or whatever the circumstance. And what I'm hearing you say is it's in the physics of it all, if that's the right term, of the science, that it actually is a heavier energy.
It is. It actually is it is in the biology of the body. It's influencing the biology of the body. That's why you feel tired, because there's so much energy being consumed and sucked inward into just the emotion, that there is no liberated energy for healing. And so you literally consume energy at a much higher rate with a body that is in that lower emotional state. And so you just feel tired. Like, think about, people use the word depression.
Right.
And I think that's a cheater word, because depression has many, many rich emotions within it. Maybe there's sorrow, maybe there's anger, maybe there's regret, maybe there is things around grief, right? That's all packed, and they put it all into depression. But we need to look at each one of those emotions and unpack them and see if there's a way that we can address each. And so that all of that, though, each one of those sucks energy at a certain rate. Depression has a big overall energy sucking influence, but each one of those has a different emotional vibration. So we can now, even a body, let's just take a body that is in full on grief. We can now take that body that's in full on grief, because it's something happened. And it's not that we want to negate the influence or the importance of grief. It's important. Who wants to feel joy when they've just lost a loved one? There's a point in which we need to go through this, but the body is designed to repair, recover. The problem is we use this frontal lobe to rehearse those thoughts of what happened and our guilt around this loss. And day after day after day, we don't ever heal, because we keep it in the forefront Every day we wake up, oh, that's right, that's me with the missing loved one.
And you keep reliving that impact of that moment perpetually.
Yep. And let me tell you, the body doesn't know the difference between something you make up in your mind or something you experience in your three-dimensional space. The body does not know the difference. It's just going to have a response based on the influence of the thought.
Yeah. I mean, I could personally attest that. I just thinking, like you were saying, I have a tendency to ruminate on things, and thinking back of the woulda, coulda, shouldas, right? Or not regret so much, but like, oh, I wish I had said that at that time. And how many times I've thought of a moment and realized I'm clenched, and I wasn't even realizing. I'm just in my mind, but all of a sudden my body's tense.
And at that moment, if you were able to measure your vitals, you would see your respiration being high. You would see your heart rate being irregular. That's what we call heart rate variability is off. You would see a mild, even though maybe mild, state of fight or flight.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even from that, I've noticed that to that point, when running, usually I'm a runner. I'll go out and it's usually just therapy, right? Go out and don't think about much. But sometimes if I get caught, I'll look at my heart rate and it's way off. And then I'll get rid of that thought and look at my heart rate again, and it drops, quite a bit.
Exactly. Because what's the heart doing? The heart needs to supply proper nutrients and get rid of waste. It needs to give oxygen to the cells and the systems of the body so they can work. The heart needs to do that. The moment we have an emotional response, then that's consuming energy, right? Vital energy. And so but the heart still needs to deal with that consumption. You've already consuming energy because of the muscle involvement in the running, but now you've added an emotional component to it, consuming even more energy, and you'll see your heart respond to that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't cheat the equation. The body is just an amazing divine instrument that operates within its energetic influence. Okay. We keep thinking that, I am this and I am that, but we have to look at the mind, spirit, and body connection and find out how are we balancing that, because the body is going to be the end result. It should be your rudder. Take a look at your body. Is there energy low? Do you see, imbalances in its ability? What do you see in the body? Is it optimized?
Right.
And if the answer is no, if you see some identifying things, don't beat yourself up over it. Just go, okay, this has been created from my thought process. Now, where do I go from there? And we want to start to work with, now again in the 21st century, with quantum physics. We're able to work with what we call the blueprint of the body, the information code.
Okay.
Because in quantum physics, in quantum science, all information is attached. All information. There's no separation in the information field between you and me and the table and anything else. There's no separation. It's just different vibrations of energy, and there's no judgment. Life and death, black and white, and male and female is just all information. And we all have a very clear, amazing signature within this information field of the optimal self, the most perfect form. It's a blueprint, and it's in the information field. So as that blueprint starts to lower vibration, this is a high frequency, high vibration state. All information is there. As that information, this is in the God field, in the quantum field, as that information starts to lower its vibration and come into the mindset of the consciousness of the individual, then it starts to solidify into a body, right? So there's a perfect blueprint, and then there's a filter, and then there's the result. The filter is this mind that we've created.
Yeah.
And the body is the end result.
Yeah. And, throughout this process, that it all turns into the mindset. Like, I got to mindset last out of the whole recovery process for my walk, and realizing that's really probably the first brick that I should have picked up. But Ken, we're kind of creeping up on time. I'm grateful for your insights. Is there something that I missed relative to the capability of the Healy, or something that?
Well, what I mentioned earlier is the important thing of technology is that it asks permission of your body. I mean, no matter what, if you're giving your body something that it doesn't want or doesn't need or is incoherent in any way, there'll be a certain level of dissonance, right? A resistance. So I think we should always ask the body, and there's lots of ways to do it through muscle testing and through prayer, through meditation, that kind of stuff. But technology doesn't use that. Technology just simply, you hook up electrodes, or you shine a light, or you give a vibration or music or a sound or whatever, and just and then you measure results. I say, and what Healy does is number one, first and foremost, we identify an issue. We come up with a program. We have a program to address any issue that you're looking at, and then ask permission, find out what resonates with the body. And the system does that. And then give it exactly what it needs. And when it's full, when it's done with that exact frequency, get rid of it. Don't give it to me anymore. And so this is what the system does. It does an evaluation. It gives you frequencies. It chooses a very specific grouping of frequencies, only maybe 3 to 4, gives them to your body and measures and gives you a progress report, measures the resonance of your body. And when your body says it's 100% resonant, it kicks that frequency out of the routine, even if the program's not over yet. It continues to evaluate. And when it's done, you're ready to go.
That's fascinating. So it's doing an assessment, it's asking permission, and then
implementation,
and then implementing it, and then
implementation. Yep. And along the whole journey, I'm giving you a progress report so that you can see it's all app based. It's all driven from your smartphone. It's all wearable technology you can wear. You can't even tell I'm wearing it. And I can run things. There's a whole nother level of interaction that it has with the information field to find out the best version of you. And then it's objective observer. So we have a way of measuring. Its objective observer through an AI system gives you a feedback as to here's what would optimize you. And then you choose to run it or not.
So how often is there how often you should use it, and I would say should, but is there an optimal frequency for use?
Yeah, well, again, it's about us. What's our goal? We put a target on the mark. If you're a runner, like you said, and you've got a big event coming up, you've got a target, and you need to train. You have to reverse engineer your training, to get to that point. So if I've got a lot going on in my body, then I need to take a look at this, let it run an evaluation on me, let go of my judgment, look at it from an objective perspective, and then you can run up to 3 to 4 microcurrent programs per day. So do what it's asking you to do, and then course correct. Take a look. We can't change a diet and expect the body to reorganize in 1 week.
Right.
You'll see some differences, but it takes a while, especially if we've had lots of birthdays with zeros on the end of them. It takes a little bit longer. Right? So we give ourselves time, and then we evaluate. I recommend people keep a journal, make sure that you understand what's going on a daily basis so you can refer back to that.
Okay.
And what happens is when we run this system, all of a sudden you just go, I don't do that anymore. Where'd that go? Right? Or I don't feel that anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the frequency is really, on a weekly basis, you can run 3 to 4 programs per day. There's a self-care regimen, grounding, hydration. Hydration, folks, is so important. Keeping your water up in your body. And then movement within the body, keeping the body moving, keeps the lymphatic system engaged and working.
Right.
So the body can work. And then just evaluate, keep track. We should be responsible for our own health.
Yes. It's so empowering what you're saying.
Quit giving our power away to somebody else. Say, how am I doing, doc? I mean, no, ask ourselves, how am I doing? Yeah. And how do I course correct? What looks best for me? Right.
Yeah. And I think you hit it on it a few minutes ago as well, as on the mindset piece on what we think. It's in our control. And yes, it's going to take some time, that patient persistence is required regardless of what you're doing. So to me, it sounds like a level of appropriate expectation, right? That you'll get to that visionary self, that ideal sense of self, but it's going to take a little bit of time.
And know this, that perfect self, that blueprint, it's there. It's there. It exists. All we need to do is help our mind get out of the way of that so it can express in the three-dimensional body. The blueprint's already there. The best version of you is already there. You don't have to make it up. You just have to get certain things out of the way so they can manifest.
Yes. Yeah. You can talk on that for quite some time, I'm sure. Just,
Yep.
The comment earlier at the beginning of this conversation around your body repairs at night because your brain gets out of the way. So it's like, it's fascinating. So Ken, I'd like to close things out with a couple of, or three personal questions or hot seat, so to speak. So curious, what are you reading right now?
I am reading Dawson Church's book, the Genie in Your Genes. Genie in Your Genes.
Okay.
So again, the genie in your genes, where you're creating your own genetic outcome.
Very cool. All right, what are you listening to right now? Music or podcast?
Music wise, if I know the words to this song, I've heard it too many times. If I can sing along, because my mind needs to have, we need to recreate and have new things influencing us all the time. I rarely listen to a lot of music that has words.
Okay.
But podcast wise, I've been studying more in the books, and I've been teaching a lot. So my intake has been less than my outtake.
Got it. Okay. And then what is your go-to rest and recovery method?
Good sleep. Now when I say good sleep, that means it doesn't mean that it's 8 hours. It doesn't. But a good meditative state is one of my most important go-tos. I can spend 20 minutes in meditation and have 2 hours worth of actual deep sleep influence and recovery on my body. So meditation, drifting you off into sleep. So using binary sounds to help influence certain things within the body as you drift off to sleep. That's a great one. So number one, recovery is and making sure that you're using your circadian rhythm. The circadian rhythm is between midnight and 2 a.m., no matter where you live. That's when the optimal time, but you need to be in the state prior and be in that state a little after. So you can't go to bed at midnight and expect to be all done by 2.
Right. Yeah, sometimes I think we wish we could, but we need a little bit more prep and wind down for all of that.
Yep. It's a lot of people are just sliding into bed right after all their hard work and slopping down some dinner and being at the end, and the body's still in an agitated state.
Yeah.
No wonder we're not getting to sleep very well, right?
Yep, 100%. Well, Ken, again, I appreciate getting the chance to speak with you at Biohacking Congress and for your availability to have this conversation. How can folks locate you and more information on Healy?
So my email address is probably the best way. It's pretty simple. Ken, KENR close, CLOSE @gmail.com. Send me a note. I can give you some information about Healy. One thing I would like to close out with, Scott, is there's an amazing carpenter that we all probably know and love that was around many, many years ago. And he created an amazing opportunity for us to move our system into the rest and digest by simply sitting down and prior to our meal, saying a prayer. There was a lot of information that went on there. So, and the most powerful manifestor that I still know to this day is Jesus. What he would do is he would say, sit down and pray over your meal. Think about this for a moment. What's going on in that moment? You just ran in, fixed your meal, threw it on the table. Your body's still in an agitated state. The moment you sit and give praise, give gratitude, and give joy, and start slowing down your breathing, the digestive system comes on full blast. the body is enjoying the meal. And that right there alone sets the stage for healing.
That's awesome. I love the closeout. That is fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Ken.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.